Hi everyone, I think we are live. Welcome to another one of our LinkedIn live events. And today's topic is going to be an interesting one. We will be talking about overcoming self-sabotage patterns in romantic relationship. A topic that isn't really thought about very deeply because whenever we are thinking about romantic relationships, we're just focused on what is my partner doing wrong, or why is the relationship not right, or how are other people affecting it, but not really about what am I doing that is affecting it, or what is it that I am doing that could be creating issues. Now I know that my audience consists of both people who are in committed relationships, that could be marriage or otherwise, and also people who are looking to get into relationships. So I will be talking about the self sabotage patterns from both the perspective, which means the first part is going to be about when you are about to get into a relationship, right? Like what are the self-sabotaging patterns that you should be aware of. And in the second half of this video today, I will be talking about what are the self-sabotaging patterns that you could be practicing while you are in a relationship. Again, it doesn't matter whether you are married or not married, a relationship is a relationship. So before we officially begin, I'm just going to quickly see if my internet is doing fine. And I have like a bit of a cold, which is very ironic because it's really hot. But in case my voice sounds a bit weird, just bear with me. And if you are attending this live event for the very first time, or probably you haven't really seen it before, so how we really do this is that while I'm talking to you about a particular topic, you can ask me whatever question you want while being live. Or if you are seeing this as a recording, probably on YouTube, then you can just put your questions in the comment section. Or if you are someone who actually is interested in working on your relationship wounds right away, then you can just DM me coaching to book a session. And one more thing I just missed. I'm actually doing a really fantastic boot camp on healing relationship wounds at the end of this month, which is May. I haven't really decided on dates yet and how many days the boot camp is going to be because I'm still like debating. But if you want to be a part of it, you can just like DM me a relationship boot camp, and I'm going to send you the link of our WhatsApp group. It's going to be a free boot camp. So if you're interested, then you can, of course, just come in. And if you haven't attended my previous boot camp yet on healing childhood trauma, then you definitely should. It's again going to give you a lot of insights into how you are as a person and what childhood trauma wounds could be affecting your relationship and your career. Link of our WhatsApp group. It's going to be a free. Okay, so I think I am live. So I'm just going to start. Um, you may hear some background noise from vehicles going here and there. It's because like my place is a little bit near the road, so just excuse me for that. And all right, let's start. Okay, so what's self sabotage really? So when we talk about self sabotage in romantic relationships, what do we really mean by that? So self sabotage is nothing but consistent patterns that you exhibit that ends up making it very difficult for you to be happy in romantic relationships. Like that is what self sabotage really is. And these are patterns that you either unconsciously engage in, or you are maybe aware that you're engaging in but you don't know how to stop. So for example, let's say you have a habit of unconsciously getting into relationships where the other partner is like emotionally unavailable, and you like always think that, okay, I'm going to fix this partner, I'm going to fix him, I'm going to fix her. So that could be an unconscious pattern that you're probably not aware of. A conscious pattern, self-sabotage pattern, could be that whenever you get into a relationship, you suddenly like start distancing yourself, and you are aware people have told you that, but like you can't stop. You become really absorbed into the relationship. Another conscious pattern that you could be unaware of is that you have like a lot of anger issues. Like whenever you get into a relationship, you get very angry at your partner, and you don't know how to like deal with conflict. Like whenever it comes to conflict, you just lose your cool and you end up fighting, and something or the other keep happening. Another could be that you always have this like pattern of indulging into infidelity whenever you're in a relationship, or like no matter how committed your relationship is, you always have thoughts about someone else. So again, right, self-sabotaging patterns could be different for different people. Just to help you understand the definition, it is basically patterns that you follow that does not make you or keep you happy in romantic relationships. Now it is not necessary that you always have this pattern. It could be that Once you get into a romantic relationship, that's when the pattern gets activated, right? That could also be a thing. So please do not think that like I don't really have this pattern, or I only have this pattern at like with this particular person. Sometimes some patterns get activated when you're in a romantic relationship, because after your parents, right, the most intimate relationship that you have is with your partner, right? So that is why like childhood trauma is very deeply connected with romantic relationships as well. And when you don't basically heal your trauma, as I've mentioned multiple times, the person who suffers the most after you is your partner and then your child, right? So we're not going to the child part today, we're just sticking to the partner part, but just to let you know what self-sabotage is. So as I said that I want to cover like all the audience. So first I will be talking about self-sabotage patterns before getting into a committed relationship, and basically what you need to keep in mind of if you do exhibit patterns like that. Okay, I'm just going to again check if my internet is fine, because I'm like really paranoid about it. Okay, it's working fine so far. Let's hope it does the entire time. Okay. So, if you see me looking down, it's just like I have a small book where I write notes so that I don't miss anything. So the first pattern I want to talk about is actually, and this is for people who want to get into a relationship, right? Or like very new to the relationship, hasn't been quite a bit of time. The first one I want to talk about is not knowing what you want in a partner, and why you want it. So before people get into like romantic relationships, they don't really take the time to actually understand what do they really want in a partner. Like we also call it lack of standards, right? Their understanding of relationships is like very, Bollywood and Hollywood version of it, or like a very romanticized version of it, or probably they're looking for something that they saw their friends indulge in or their parents indulge in. Basically they don't really know what they want, right? And they don't even know why they want it, if they do want something, right? So for example, if someone says that, okay, um I want like a partner who is really romantic. They don't really know why they want it, right? Maybe they saw it somewhere and they like glamorize it in their head. And the problem with this kind of pattern, when you are not aware what you want, is that you look for really superficial things. And this is also one of the reasons why, like, there's a very big problem that happens in arranged marriages as well, is because you don't really know what you're looking for, and when you don't know that, you look for superficial things, right? Superficial things could be, my partner should look a certain way, my partner should make this amount of money, my partner should be this on paper. So basically there's a lot of superficial filters. Now I'm not saying that they are bad, they can be, of course everybody has a personal preference, but you're so blinded by superficial things, you don't really look for what matters, which is the character and the quality of the person, right? Which means, how is the person qualitative wise, like what is their level of emotional intelligence, do they have conflict resolution skills, are they supportive, are they ambitious, and other things like that. So when you don't know what you want, you may either never find someone because you're very choosy. Excuse me, as I said, like I have a really bad throat. You may either never find someone because you're very unsure, very dicey, or you are getting into a relationship where you're falling in love with every other person, right? Like the person shows a little bit of affection to you and you're like, oh my god, this is the one I want, right? So you must have seen some people who like fall in love with every other person, and that's because they lack standards, right? They don't have a standard to, okay, this is what I want. And the problem with this is that when you don't know what you want, it lands you in a lot of like time wasting situationships, relationships, and whatever uh, people are calling it these days. But you end up like getting into like talking stages with a lot of people, but it doesn't really materialize into something. Or worse, you don't find anyone at all, because there is this like perfect unicorn image that you have in your head, but you haven't really listed out the qualities that this is what I want in a person. For example, I knew someone, their entire life they were obsessed with that my partner should look a certain way. And even when they would date someone really beautiful, then they would change their criteria, that okay, no, this person should have that also, this also. And then they spend their entire life like this, and they're now 52 and they're still single, and they still are in the search of that one person, right? Because they're very vague about what they want, right? And very superficial about it, like um their wants and needs changes. So if you're someone like this, how do you really deal with it? The very first thing is sit down. Okay, and make a list of negotiables and non-negotiables. Make a list of what are the negotiable characteristics I want in my partner and what are the non-negotiable characteristics I want in a partner, and try to be as qualitative as possible, right? Do not just go with superficial things, because the thing with superficial things is that after a certain age they all diminish, right? For example, after a certain age we all are going to get gray hair, we all are going to get wrinkles, we all are going to look a certain way, right? But it's when it's a quality of a person, like they age like fine wine, you know. So sit down and make a list of negotiables and non-negotiables, things that you can compromise on, things that you cannot absolutely compromise on, right? Now the second thing is getting into relationship for all the wrong reasons. So I'm going to mention like three or four reasons. There could definitely be more, right? So oftentimes people don't get into relationships because they want to, but because there's some there's a void, or there is something they're running after. So for example, the very first reason why people get into relationship, I'm going to like pause for a few seconds and I want you to guess it. What do you think is the first reason why people get into relationship these days, specifically the ones who have unhealed trauma? If you don't know, the answer is loneliness. One of the most prominent reason I've seen people get into relationships is because they are lonely. They need someone to fill the void, right? And because with time friends get busy, and of course life has been very fast these days in metropolitan areas, so you don't really know what to do with it. So you just think that okay, my partner is just going to resolve everything for me, so let me just get into a relationship. Now the problem with again this is that because you are looking for a cure for loneliness, you somewhere don't really care about who the person is, right? Like you want to just get into any relationship, right? Someone who can just like take away my loneliness, somebody I can talk to, somebody who I can experience physical touch with, somebody who can be there for me, right? So when there's this really big void of loneliness, again your standards go to a toss, right? And when you do that, of course, then the chances of being in the wrong relationship, toxic relationship, is much higher. And the irony of this loneliness um, like paradigm is that you may feel even more lonelier in the wrong relationship. And that's the thing, right? When you look at a relationship and you think that this is going to resolve something for me, you have basically given the responsibility of your inner work to someone else. And I see that people do all the time. I see people do this all the time, right? They don't want to work on themselves. For example, if you lack confidence, you want your partner to reassure you all the time. You have loneliness, you want your partner to fill it for you. You lack ambition, you want your partner to fulfill all your financial desires. So anything, right? Basically you want your partner to fill something in you, right? As if like they are your parent. Classic sign of childhood trauma, right? When you don't look at your partner as a partner, but like as a parent who will fulfill something for me, right? Now, the second common reason, this is something that I see both for committed people and the ones who are trying to get into a relationship, is societal pressure. So, societal pressure is basically when like everybody around you is sort of getting into a relationship, and you feel like, okay, I also need to get into one. Or like around the age of, like specifically in our country, around the age of like 27 to 30, there's like a pressure that builds up on everyone around getting married. So, a lot of people just get into marriages purely from a place of that, okay, now we have to get married, so do it, let's just do it. So again, right, the standards go down significantly, right? The standards go down significantly because the pressure of getting married is so high that you are willing to let go of a lot of red flags. You're willing to let go of a lot of things that you wouldn't if you weren't desperate. Similarly, when let's say maybe you are in your college, or you're in your early 20s, maybe you felt that pressure when you looked at other people, that okay, everybody has a partner, so I also need to have a partner. So again, right, when you come from a place like that, of course, standards go to your toss and you are willing to be with anyone, leading to wasting time or accumulating even more trauma, or just losing your self confidence and stuff like that. Now, see, in teenage, in early 20s, of course, everybody makes mistakes. That's okay. This problem, the societal pressure problem, becomes much more severe for people who are about to get married, or who are in this particular age where they're facing pressure from people. Because if you give in to the pressure, you end up compromising things for life, because marriage is not something that you just like go and get annulled, or you just get divorced, right? Marriage is a commitment. So imagine making a commitment because everybody is making a commitment, so I feel pressured for it. It's not chocolate cake, right? Everybody is having it, I'm going to have it. It's marriage. It's not a It's not a light thing, but a lot of people treat it like that. Like a partner affects every single area of your life, your health, your finances, your career, everything, right? Everything. You spend what, 18, 20 years with your family members, or maybe let's say if you're someone who's living with your family, probably 25, 30 years, but you spend like 60, 70 years with your partner. You did not have a choice in the house you were born into, which is your parents, but you do have a choice with your partner. So do not take it lightly. Just because everybody is doing something doesn't mean that it's right for you as well. And by the way, you also don't know whether everyone who is doing this is doing the right thing. I have seen people in really unhappy relationships and marriages advising other people who get into one, right? You don't know. So check the credibility of people when you look at them and be like, okay, I also want to be like them. Look at their life, look at the sacrifices they are making, look at the inner work they have also done, right? Okay, now this also come makes me come to the the third point, which is status. So a lot of people also look at relationship as a form of status. If I get married, I'm going to be respected more, or that, you know what, I'm not married, so people are disrespecting me. And unfortunately, that is the truth as well in Indian society, wherein when you are not married, people sort of look at you in a strange way. They look at you that, oh my god, like this person is not for this not is not with anyone. Similarly, that can also happen when you're in your early 20s, where people look at relationship as a status symbol, where they feel that, okay, if someone is in a relationship, they are somehow better or happier. Some people assume that people in relationships are happier than single people, right? I've also seen all of that. So the point is that when you get into relationship for status, like for example, some people get into relationships with only pretty people who look great, or some people get into relationship just for money. So basically you think that my partner is going to elevate my status. And again, right, superficial things. And when you are so blinded by superficial parameters, you are unable to look at the real picture of the person. You're unable to look at, okay, how the person really is, right? How the person really is, and can they really make me happy? Can they really be my better half? You're so blinded by the superficial nonsense. Okay, I'm just going to quickly see again if you're doing fine. Okay, they're doing fine. The internet is working good. That's great. Probably because it's not raining. All right, coming to the next point, lack of self-worth leading to ignoring red flags. So here's the thing, okay? Now I'm not going to get into the whole why the lack of self-worth exists. If you haven't watched my previous live events on lack of self-worth, overcoming lack of self-worth, go watch it. I have explained in detail why it exists. Of course, it's due to childhood trauma. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but let me tell you what happens when lack of self-worth exists. See, when you lack self worth, right, you believe that you don't deserve much in life, right? You believe that whatever I'm getting, it's great. Like if somebody is giving me this much, it's too much, it's this much, right? So you are not used to receiving good things in life. You're not used to someone loving you completely. You're not used to someone giving you their time, their attention, their love, right? You're not used to that. And again, right, lack of self worth there could be multiple reasons, but again, the major thing is childhood trauma and how you were treated. So let's take an example, okay? Let's say if I lack self-worth, okay? If somebody comes and just let's say I lack self-worth, and somebody is just talking nicely to me, I will fall in love with them. Oh my god, this person is so nice to me. I'll be in love with them. And let's say this particular person does not have great intentions for me, right? I get into a relationship, and this person is very rude to me. This person disrespects me, or this person lies to me a lot. This person doesn't give me time. This person makes me pay for everything. This person doesn't tell everyone that they're in a relationship with me. I'm okay with all of that. Why? Because this person talks sweetly to me. That's how low my standards will get when I lack self-worth, because inherently I believe that I'm not worthy of much. If someone just does like bare minimum for me, I get very happy. Oh my god, this person has done so much for me. So I will make excuses. I will not be able to spot red flags. And that's something that happens to a lot of people and stuck in toxic relationships. From outside people can see that it is toxic, but for them it is not toxic. For them it is like it's really fine, that my partner loves me but he doesn't show me. You must have seen some people say that, right? My partner loves me, this is the only way he shows it. Or this is how my partner is, she's very good from heart. All of this is nonsense, right? And it is nonsense because I'll tell you one thing. um, People who don't show love will show other emotions. It's not like they will not be angry, they will not be ambitious, they will not be like vocal with their aggression. They will be. So if they're just not vocal with love, it's because your standards are too low. You're willing to accept this person who is giving you very less. That's your issue, right? So don't tell me that people have love inside them but they don't show it. That's just borderline nonsense. If people can show other emotions, they can also show love. But if they're not specifically showing love, then it is because you're stuck in a toxic relationship and you don't know it. So lack of self-worth is actually one of the most dangerous things to be stuck in, specifically when you're pursuing a romantic relationship, because anybody can abuse you, anybody can take advantage of you, and you will keep on worshipping this person. You will keep them on a pedestal. Oh my god. For example, you must have seen some people say that, oh, my partner like is listens to me. It's a bare minimum. Or my partner, let's say, is very supportive of my career. Bare minimum, right? It's not something that's special. That should be the bare minimum. But it's a mix of lack of self-worth fueling to lack of standards, right? So again, one of the reasons why people don't have standards is also because they don't believe they deserve much, right? And we always accept the love that we think we deserve. So that deservingness goes to garbage when we lack self-worth. Now, the last point, and again, there could be many more points. I'm just like sticking to the points that I have observed a lot. Expecting romantic relationship to solve all your problems. So I'll tell you a real life case scenario. Okay, so I once had a clarity call with a woman who had a lot of issues in her life, as in like. She wasn't moving forward in her career. She was stuck in a low paying job, which was leading to like her going in debt. She was very worried about money as well, and she was worried about her health as well. And situation in her house wasn't very good. She had terrible relationship with her parents as well. So basically there were a lot of issues, right? But the only thing that she thought would save her, right, would be to convert a situationship. So again, right, for the mature audience who doesn't know situationship, I also had to google it. So situationship is basically like when you two people are not really sure what they're doing, they don't want to commit, and they call it situationship, right? So her major focus was converting that situationship into a real relationship, and she thought that that would solve everything. Like that partner would be an escape. So she wanted to escape all her problems, her career, her finances, things at home, her health. And she was looking at her relationship as in, like, from a romantic lens. Oh my god, my partner will save me, that knight in shining armor. So when we did some deep work, obviously she like realized the patterns that is happening for her. We worked for a while, and the good thing was that she recognized her self-worth, she developed a lot of confidence, and she was able to leave behind that relationship and start working towards a career. But the point is that a lot of people don't even take help. They look at their relationship as an escape. My relationship would solve everything. If I just get into a relationship, everything will be good in my life. And unfortunately, this idea is also propagated in our society. You must have seen some people say that, oh, just get this person married, this person will become responsible. There's some bullshit ideas like this. So a lot of men and women both look at relationship as a way to just escape their loneliness, lack of finances, lack of ambition, lack of career growth. They just look at relationship as a knight in shining armor that will save me from everything, right? And the problem is, and I'll tell you what happens when you go into life like this. You get into a relationship, you put all of the expectation, the all of the unfulfillment you feel on your partner. You want your partner to be everything to you, right? Like, you expect that I need to be happy all the time with my partner, which is unrealistic, right? Your partner is not an entertainment channel. When a relationship is happening, it should be two consenting adults, not an adult and a wounded inner child, wounded small child coming to the adult saying that, oh, save me, which is what happens to a lot of people. So you go into a relationship with a lot of dreamy ideas, and of course it doesn't work out. Of course you get disappointed, because you want your partner to treat you like a parent, like you want to be their child. And that's not romantic or cute in any sense. That's you not doing your inner work. That's you escaping healing, escaping your inner work, escaping personal growth, and expecting my partner will solve everything. And it never works out, never ever works out. You put all your issues and baggage on your partner. So you may drive away the partner, or you may partner may realize that okay, he's in a toxic or she's in a toxic relationship, or you may realize that okay, I am trapped. Could go to multiple ways. Now, let's come to the self sabotaging patterns in a committed relationship, which means what are the patterns that you could be indulging in while being in a committed relationship. I'm going to see if we have any questions. I don't think we have it yet. Just a couple of messages which are a bit unrelated to the live, so I will answer them later. Okay. So, self sabotaging patterns in a committed relationship. So, let's start with the most obvious one, which is lack of boundaries. So, when you're in a committed relationship, there could be this. So, specifically, if you're a people pleaser, there could be a need to just sacrifice yourself, to sacrifice your needs and wants for the partner, or even for the partner's family in case you're married, right? And lack of boundary is a very toxic trait to have within you, because you build up resentment over time. You expect your partner to read your mind. You expect your partner to just like understand what you're going through, or you feel compelled that I have to give away a lot for myself, give a lot of myself, right? Sometimes you may also be someone who's just giving too much. You're giving financially also, emotionally also, physically also, everything you're giving, because you just lack boundaries. You don't know how to say no. And the problem with this kind of relationships, when you lack boundaries, is that you can be abused very very easily, right? Because you don't know how to say no. You don't know what boundaries are. And a lot of people are also gaslighted, right? I've seen cases, and I've also worked with both men and women, wherein they were gaslighted into believing that you should just sacrifice everything for your relationship. For example, I once worked with a woman who used to do everything, like who was giving away all her salary, who was like doing household chores also, who was doing everything for a partner, and a partner gaslighted her into believing that she owes everything into the relationship. Similarly, I've also worked with a man where this man was doing everything in the relationship, right? Again, right, financially providing, being there for the partner, even taking help, right? Like the fact that both my clients hired me was a sign that they were also doing their inner work. And like his partner made him believe that that is what love is, right? So I've seen many cases wherein you are gaslighted into believing that this is what love is, because again, right, you don't know how to say no. So anybody can manipulate you, and because you think love is sacrifice. So that's again a very self-sabotaging pattern that you need to work on. Again, why people pleasing exist, if you're just interested in that specific topic, I have already done a live event. You can just like go to my YouTube. It's with the name Rianshi Agrawal. You can just like scroll and you will find it, or you can just find it in the events section of my LinkedIn profile. Now, lack of self-awareness about you want, about what you want, and about what you don't want. This is again a very major issue in committed relationships, because I've seen a lot of marriages and committed relationships of years get into a really horrible space because you don't know what you want, right? So let's take an example. Let's say if I'm in a committed relationship, and let's say my partner wants to move abroad. Okay, my partner wants to move abroad, and I don't really know what I want. I don't know what I want. So I just say that, so my partner is very excited, and I get swayed with his excitement. I said, okay, yes, I will also come to abroad. Then I go abroad, and then I start feeling that, oh my God, I didn't want to be here. I'm feeling very lonely. Or, oh my God, my partner is having a good time because he's going to work, and I'm just feeling very lonely. I don't know anyone. So I may start fighting with my partner. Why did you make me come here? And my partner may ask me, oh, you agreed to it, but I'm fighting. What's that? That's me not understanding what I want. And that happens to a lot of people. A lot of people agree to go into marriages and committed relationships without really knowing what they want. And this can happen at any level. This can happen at a very small level, as which area do you want to live in, right? Do you want to live with in-laws, do you not want to live with in-laws, to even very big decisions like do you want to have kids, financial division of things. It can go to many extent. So when you don't know what you want, you create a problem for yourself and for your partner, because see, your partner cannot read your mind. Like I have seen people telling me that, oh Rianshi, like I expected my partner will understand if I'm making so many sacrifices. And then I asked this particular person, does your partner know that you consider this a sacrifice? And then this person said that no, I didn't. What is that? So it's very important for you to know what you want. And which brings me to the next point, which I will talk about, which is lack of healthy communication. You need to know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then you will be indecisive, you will make your partner also confused, and you will make yourself also confused. And confusion is a very big enemy of a great life. When you're confused, every single day you're living in anxiety. Every single day you're like, oh my god, is this right, is this wrong? That's a recipe for disaster. And by the way, this thing, this confusion or lack of decision making skills that you have, your partner is not responsible for it. You need to do your inner work. Like, and this is a very funny thing. I was actually speaking to my client about today, who's also a married woman, and we're also working on a relationship. So we were just talking about, and she mentioned that, Rianshi, the reason I don't want to go for marriage counseling yet is because they just always try to like save the marriage without really understanding the two people, and that's so true. A lot of people think that marriage counseling is going to save everything, but the truth is that sometimes it's not the marriage that needs saving. Sometimes it's you need to do your inner work, because two people coming together is two family systems coming together, two childhood traumas coming together, two inner children coming together. So when you are wounded, you bring your hurt, you bring your baggage, and you trigger your partner also. Similarly, if your partner is also wounded, then you both trigger each other, and then you both create a mess. So 99% of the time, I've seen that if you do your inner work, your marriage automatically does better. Even committed relationship, not just marriage. Relationship is a relationship. So when you don't know what you want, it is your job to work on your decision making skills, your confidence, your decisiveness, everything. Now, the next point, as I said, lack of healthy communication. Now, again, a very very common problem I've seen when I've worked with couples and I've worked with people who are married is people often expect that the partner will just know something. So for example, let's say that I'm with a partner who's from, let's say, a different culture, okay? And let's say in my house, if we cook something, um, like, it's a mutual decision. We ask each other, okay, what do you want? But let's say, I'm sorry that there's some background noise. But let's say in my partner's house, when somebody's cooking something, they don't really ask everyone. And let's say some food is being cooked that I don't like on a daily basis, and I harbor a lot of resentment. I start getting angry at my partner that, oh, I did not eat the food I even like, and I feel suppressed and stuff like that. And my partner is confused. My partner is like, where is this coming from? Why didn't you just say it? Because I expected that my partner will just know what I want. Or I just expected that whatever I want will automatically happen without communicating. Similarly, there are so many important topics like finances, kids, lifestyle. How do you want to raise your kids in case you're having it? Where do you want to live? The division of labor, the division of finances. These are like really important things people don't talk about, right? And that lack of communication often leads to my favorite problem: assumption. Assuming things about the partner, assuming, oh yeah, my partner will take care of it. How do you know, right? Or assuming that my partner doesn't understand me. Did you say it out loud? This is what I want. And I mean it, because a lot of people watch like Karan Johar movies, Bollywood movies, Hollywood movies, like The Notebook, and shit like that, and they think that my partner will just know what I want, or this is what love is. That's not what love is. Even your parent who has raised you cannot always tell you what you want, or they can't read your mind. So to expect that another adult who has a full life will just know what you want is like extremely unfair. So if there is a lack of healthy communication between you and your partner, very big red flag. You need to work on it, right? Either you need to work on that part, or your partner needs to work on it. Again, right, depends on who is open to inner work, right? So hopefully, if you are in a healthy relationship, both of you will be open to it. But even if the one person isn't, then whoever needs the help, right? And you know what? I'll tell you something. You don't always need an external person to actually solve relationship problems for you if you yourself do your inner work. Like, if you are like doing trauma healing coaching sessions, you automatically become so high on personal growth that there are some things that you can just teach your partner, that you can just talk to your partner about, right? So again, like, if even one of you does your inner work, that's more than enough. Now, let's talk about attachment style. So, attachment style, if you don't know, you can just Google it. Very interesting and a very common topic, actually. Attachment style is also something that I wrote about like a couple of days ago, if you want to check it out. So, attachment style is basically the way you bond with your partner in a romantic relationship. And it is often sort of like what do you call it, influenced by your by the childhood trauma and that you've experienced, and how your relationship was with your primary caregivers, which was your mom and dad. So the way your relationship was with your mom and dad, right, it greatly affects the relationship that you have with your partner as well. So I'm going to talk about two major attachment styles today, in just in short: anxious attachment style and avoidant attachment style. Usually these two people attract each other. Anxious attachment style is when you're always afraid that my partner is going to leave me, right? You don't trust that your partner is going to stay, you become very clingy, you need your partner a lot, you expect a lot from them, and basically you're always doubtful, you need a lot of reassurance, right? And this is always anxiety, as the name suggests, right? Like you're always anxious that my partner is going to leave me, and this often results in a lot of conflict. You even driving your partner away because you're so clingy. You basically revolve your entire life around your partner, right? And the problem with this attachment style is that it does not make your relationship last in any way, right? It makes it very difficult for your partner and yourself as well. Like relationship takes away all of your energy. Similarly, an avoidant attachment style is the opposite of this. As the name suggests, an avoidant attachment style is when you are someone who avoids any emotional conversation, who basically likes to avoid any uncomfortable emotions. Your reaction, for example, for an anxious attachment style, the reaction to any uncomfortable thing is become anxious, become clingy. You want explanation, you want to talk a lot. For avoidant attachment style, they have an emotional shutdown reaction. They will shut down, they will retreat in their shell. Like for some people, you must have seen, right? In the face of fight or a conflict, they just say that, okay, I just need to go, or I need time. They cannot talk it out because they're overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed very easily with conflict. So these two people often attract each other. Now again, the problem with both these attachment styles is that it creates like a very toxic relationship style, right? If you are an anxious attachment style, you probably have an avoidant partner. And if you are an avoidant partner, then you probably have an if you are yourself an avoidant person, you probably have an anxious partner, right? And it's like an avoidant partner always seeks out an anxious partner, because the anxious partner sort of represents all the suppressed feelings this avoidant partner has, and the anxious partner uh, gets into this toxic cycle of running behind an avoidant partner, right? And this dynamic is often shared with your parents growing up, right? Now, I'm not going to go into detail into this because I'm just going to talk about this in my boot camp as well, and I'm going to make separate posts on it. But again, right, when you don't have a secure attachment style, basically when you feel confident and secure in your relationship, you don't like revolve your life around it, you are emotionally intelligent, you are able to regulate your emotions, you're not scared of conflict. When you don't have a secure attachment style, then again, right, it leads to toxic cycles or attracting partners with toxic cycles. Now, the next point is lack of self worth. Now, again, as I mentioned in the point before as well, when I was talking about people who get into people who want to get into relationships. So, again, right, when you are in a committed relationship and you lack self worth, uh, again, a very high chance that you may be facing abuse, and you don't know, and you accept the bare minimum in the relationship, and your partner is doing this much, you're doing this much, but you're okay with it because you lack self worth, or your partner is disrespectful to you, your partner is treating you any way they want, and you're okay with it because, again, right, this is what you think you deserve, or you don't really think that, okay, there is someone out there I can even consider, or that there is someone out there who can treat me better, right? And as I said, right, like this starts from childhood. So your self-worth is something um that's a very, like, I would say, like your self-worth has taken many years to develop, so it's an inner work thing. Like if I just tell you, okay, don't be in abusive relationship, it doesn't mean that you will leave, right? A lot of people often think, oh, why do people stay in disrespectful relationships? And the answer is childhood trauma. The answer is not as simple as they don't know. People are not stupid. It's just that the trauma is just so big that any intellectual understanding doesn't really make any sense, right? Like the loyalty to suffering is just that much high. This brings me to the last part of the live event today, which is why do these patterns exist and what can we do to actually heal it? Okay, so I am going to again see if you have any questions or. when will the boot camp happen? So it's not really related to this live event. As I said, right, I haven't really announced the dates yet. I'll probably announce it this week, but you can just join the group that we have. Okay, we don't really have any questions related to the topic at hand, so we'll just move forward with the last topic. So, why do these patterns exist and how do we actually heal them, right? So, the very first reason is, of course, as I said, childhood trauma that fuels lack of self worth. See, your sense of worthiness, right? How much do you think you deserve in life, specifically in relationship, comes from how much you've received from your parent, right? Your receiving comes from your mother specifically, right? That is why when you struggle with receiving, or when you're always the giver, you have a mother wound, right? A big mother wound. Again, if you don't know what a mother wound is, just like watch my boot camp on healing childhood trauma. It's available for free in the feature section of my profile. And I think we have lost focus. Okay, I don't know how to fix this. Let's just move on. So, as I said, that childhood trauma often leads to lack of self-worth, and mother wound specifically leads to you being in relationships where you always have to give more, and you're very okay with it. Like you're very okay giving more. You're very okay, like receiving less, right? So that's a receiving wound. So when it comes to lack of self-worth, you need to do deep inner work. Just convincing yourself I'm worthy isn't going to change anything. I've seen multiple people go to therapies for years, it hasn't changed shit for them. Why? Because you haven't done the real work, which is making your inner child feel safe, doing even intergenerational trauma work. Because see, toxic relationship also runs in families, right? When there has been women in your family system who have self-sacrificed, and as a woman you will also do that. If you're a man, when you have seen broken relationships in your family system, you may also manifest that. If you have felt lonely in your relationship as a man, you may also manifest that. So trauma runs very deep. Okay, it can be intergenerational nature, it can be childhood trauma in nature, right? So your job is to do deep inner work so that you can come out of it, so you can develop self-worth from foundation level, right? And if you're actually interested in doing this work, I do this with my clients all the time and they get fantastic results. And if you would like to work privately with me in my highly transformative coaching container, just book a one-on-one session with me. The link is in the featured section. And if you have any questions, you can always DM me. Now, that brings me to the second point, which is unhealthy dynamic with parents. So, for example, your parent was very critical towards you, so you may also attract a partner like that. Your parent was very aggressive towards you, so you may again accept a partner who's aggressive towards you. Your parent never made you feel safe, so you may be okay with a partner who's, let's say, who also does not make you feel safe. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Something that I've seen is that when you haven't felt like a sense of security and safety in your house, you also end up in relationship with people who are not financially secure. Because again, that money also represents safety, right? So you may be often getting into relationships who take with people who take a lot of financial help from you. Because they represent that lack of safety that you experienced in childhood. Because see, ultimately you keep on recreating the same dynamic with people in life, right? If you felt unsafe growing up in your home and you haven't healed that part of you, you will take the same wounding and you will create it in your romantic relationship. Because the blueprint isn't changed, the blueprint is the same. When you were born, you learn to love a certain way from your parents, and you take that formula and you apply it everywhere, even though you know it's toxic, even though it's not working for you. Because trauma lives in the body. No matter how many books you read, how many podcasts you watch, the intellectual understanding doesn't change anything. You need to heal and release the trauma from the body, right? And that only happens in trauma resolution. Now, the last thing is a quite common one, which is a toxic understanding of what love is. Like watching movies and saying that, okay, if my partner slaps me, that's okay. If I'm sacrificing myself, that's okay. I will, like, cut my nerves for my partner, that is okay. I will, be aggressive and fight with people for my partner, that's okay. So being influenced by nonsense like this. And another thing is that when you are influenced by when you are influenced by your relatives and parents as well, like when you see that your parents had a dysfunctional marriage, and again, right, you feel that it's okay for a woman to keep sacrificing, you feel that it's okay for a man to feel lonely in a marriage, or infidelity is normalized. So basically, when you are influenced by a lot of negative things, right, or you don't even know you're influenced by this. For example, I speak to so many women who think that it's okay to sacrifice, it's okay to just let go of our identity. And I see also a lot of men who feel that it's okay to just cheat. Again, this is not um, generalization. It happens in both the cases, vice versa as well. But it's because you're influenced by all the wrong stuff and you don't know what you want. So when you're unhappy and you don't know what you want, it's very easy to get influenced, right? So that is what happens. You get influenced in the wrong way, and this results into a whole toxic cycle. So, if you are someone who's actually serious about healing your relationship wounds, you need to do your inner work, because a third person cannot come and fix your relationship. Remember, you created your relationship because of a certain reason. There is a part of you, there is a wounded inner child who craves certain kind of unhealthy patterns because of which you're unable to let go, right? And that could be coupled by lack of confidence, lack of belief in yourself, getting gaslighted or manipulated. It could be multiple things, right? So the best way to do is to do your inner work, right? And when you do your inner work, you release all the trauma that has created this relationship in the first place. So what will happen is, you will either improve the current relationship, or you will have the courage to leave without any guilt, right? So that is what happens when you start healing. Now, if you're actually interested in doing this work, I'd be very happy to help you. You can book a one-on-one session with me, or if you have questions about it, again, you can ask me. And I also have free communities that I run, where I send audio coachings every single day, and I share a lot of free resources. You can join my free communities in the feature section of my profile. They are right there. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. And I will be writing a lot more on relationships in a lot of depth, and I'll be touching up on a lot of topics. A few days before, I actually released a form. It was like a data collection form where like sort of requested you guys to fill it up so that I can understand your relationship problems. So if you're interested that I talk specifically about the problems that you are facing, you can like scroll through my profile. I'll just like send me the word data collection, and I'll send you that Google form, and you can just fill it up. It's a private form. Nobody can see your identity there. Even I cannot. So I can take up the topics that you probably may be, getting like you probably may be uh, like getting trouble for, right? And again, thank you so much for joining, and I hope that I see you for the next live. Bye bye.